Well, good morning, and it is Monday morning, the beginning of week 2, just about 6:30, and I want to do a quick gloss on what's coming up this week just to get your brains ready. Also noting that really a lot of good work last week. Most everybody did all the assignments. The few of you who are a little behind, be strategic, always stay current, that is, stay even with week 2, and then backfill what you have to catch up on from week 1. That way you're always part of the class as we move forward. And you're only behind for that little segment of week 1 instead of being simultaneously behind on weeks 1 and 2. I think it's just a little bit easier on your head. Now, some of you will notice, especially I think with the movie quiz, that when I asked to use direct quotes and you didn't, you got dinged for that. The reason I emphasize quotes is that they're required in your essay. It's a couple of things are involved. One is the critical reading part of your essay. Can you find the best lines to illustrate your point? And the other is the mechanical part, the writing part. Can you integrate quotes seamlessly into your discussion? And so those are a couple of the skills, critical reading and critical writing. You could make your point without quotes, but you couldn't practice the mechanics of balancing a quote with your discussion unless you actually integrate them. So that is a requirement. It is load bearing. That is, the grade will be affected profoundly if you don't get good quotes. So that's part of the setup here, because this is kind of a good quote scavenger hunt week. Monday, 1 to 2 hours, you've got a discussion, weekly self-assessment, and SAT practice reading test, time 20 minutes or so. And that just gets you to slow down and go back and forth, you and the text, talking to it, asking those 10 questions. And that's the kind of careful reading you're going to want to do as you move through this week. Don't just do a flyover, but get into the text, push pause, think about it. Wednesday, a couple of activities from the book, and then Friday, a couple of activities from the book. Probably looking at, I don't know what this all adds up to, but 6 or 8 hours anyway, maybe a little bit more. And consider also that you don't have 6 hours of class time. So it's a pretty good bargain when it comes to time. Anyway, that's the rough overview. As you get into the weeds on these, you'll find the self-assessments kind of self-explanatory. Just let me know what's going well, what you need help with. This is what it's really about, mindfulness with reading. And that is talking to the text. That's what the SAT shows you. Learning how to focus mindfully and pull yourself back into the text when your mind wanders. That's another thing of mindfulness. You're going to read, and 2 pages later, you're thinking of what you're doing next weekend, and your eyes are following the words on the page. That's natural. So snap out of it, go back to where you lost track, but just learn to focus and meditate on the text in short sections. Nothing too big. Look up the words you don't know. Do all that fun stuff. And keep in mind, this is all about your essays. Shows careful reading, because you're really, especially on the first essay, you're going to be representing these readings quite well, and then they will provide a foundation for what follows after the first essay. More on that next week. It'll be due roughly, I'd say, probably the end of week 4, so about another, not quite 3 weeks. All right, so just keep that in mind, and then I do break it down. Used to be a little bit too much to throw the whole book at people, read these 35 pages, 10-page introduction, and then the 25-page chapter 1. So now I break it down into segments. The first thing we're going to do on Monday is we're going to review. I want you to find good lines from the movie that really represent one of these tobacco strategies. Quote it well, put a timestamp on it. Just trying to go back and forward here. Make sure we don't forget that what we did last week is just as important as what we're doing next week. I am looking for the next button here, and I'm not seeing it. There it is, heading there. Okay, so a review exercise, getting into the text, a couple of kind of a warm-up for the SAT, and a discussion about the SAT. And I think I need to move that after the SAT test, pardon me, but I can do that real quickly. And here's the SAT practice reading. I'll fix that sequence. And you'll find that the style of those SAT tests really is excellent for just reminding you how to have a dialogue with the text. Ask questions about the text. Find the best lines to answer those questions. I better scoot though, this can go on forever. So a reminder to follow up on Monday's review discussion on Tuesday. A little bit of background on COVID, science, tribalism, just because it runs through almost all of our politics. Higher vaccination rates tend to be Democrat, lower vaccination rates tend to be Republican. Has to do with tribalism, who do we trust? And one of the chief predictors for a higher incidence of COVID was the percentage, a high percentage of Republican voters. That does not mean anything about Republicans being smart or dumb. It just means that they are, like everybody else, susceptible to kind of the tribal, this is what our group thinks. And the same thing happens with COVID, happens with climate change. I mentioned Bob Inglis, how much I like him, and then also one of our greatest environmental presidents was, ironically enough, Richard Nixon. So I don't want to get too much into good guys and bad guys on the left and right. A follow-up again on Wednesday from that Monday discussion for people who wrote back to you, and if nobody wrote back to you for some crazy reason, then nobody responded to your post, then respond to a third person. That'll work instead. Now we get into the roll up your sleeves part. Okay, you've got a discussion, a prompt. I'm going to go very quickly here. And you always want to use quotes on these. You've got the same thing, discussion, content. You're always going to use quotes on these things. And this will all come in handy in your paper. And then quote integration. This is a practice on integrating quotes. I mentioned that's going to be key. You've got a voice thread here, very essential skill that most people need to practice a bit, and that's kind of what English teachers do. And another little bit of a different focus here, but another discussion with posts 14 to 20, and closing out Merchants of Doubt. And they're all going to have the same rhythm, different prompts, but basically read those very carefully. And we're done with week 2. I'm going to stop this. It's already 8 minutes long. And I wish you all good luck this week. I'll be around tonight at 7 o'clock if you want to have a Zoom session. Or email me and I can set up a time. I'll be getting on with your PIQs starting today as well. So things will come together. Top of the week to you.